What's up, y'all, and welcome to probably the best fitness and nutrition podcast ever. We know there's a ton of wellness information,
but we also know that by learning to optimize your nutrition, fitness, recovery, mindset, and relationships, that you'll feel more human than ever.
That's why we take fitness and nutrition seriously, but not ourselves.
So turn up your volume while learning, laughing, and crying with us. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Roux Fitness to stay up to date on the best fitness advice, and at Stacked Coaching for all of the most important nutrition tips and tricks.
And now, the podcast that will change your life.
Probably.
What's up, what's up? We are here at SV Espresso.
Yeah, we took a field trip.
Got with us Sarah, and this is the owner of SV Espresso, Hershy. Hershy, SV stands for?
Small Victories.
Small Victories. And why is that?
Why does SV? Because the letter S makes a S sound, and the letter V makes a V sound. So that's why it stands for. But that wasn't what you were asking.
No. I'm saying, why did you choose? Australian humor. We haven't even got that. Hershy is from Australia, and we are actually sipping some Australian coffee.
Yeah.
So why Small Victories?
So I just think in life, if you can start off with one small victory every day, everything's going to be fine. I think if you take care. My grandmother used to, or still says, in Australia we used to have pennies and pounds a long time ago, and she says if you take care of the pennies, the pounds will take care of themselves. And I think small victories are like that too. If you take care of the small victories, the big ones will take care of themselves. So we like to say that this, we're open, until 2:00 in the afternoon, but for most people it's, the first stop of the day is here, and I like to say if we can give you a small victory for the day and set you on your way, you'll have a good day. So we hope.
That's a lot how we coach nutrition, right?
Yeah. No, it's 100% true, and we're always talking about the little bit better approach and taking small steps in the right direction, but I like taking that even a step further, and that being what you start your day with.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you choose, or how did we end up here in New Orleans? An Australian coffee man in New Orleans.
Well, as I like to tell people, I ended up here by aeroplane, but again, that's not what you're asking.
This guy's got jokes.
All the dad jokes.
And you're not even a dad.
Right, I know. Imagine how much worse it would be if I were. For me, most recently, before this, I was in Austin, Texas. I am, by trade, although trying to do less and less of it, a restaurant consultant, which is really just a fancy way of seeing people often pay me to open up restaurants for them, or sometimes fix up, but mainly open up restaurants for them. And so it's time to move on from Austin. We've been there for a couple of years, and it seemed like the right place to go. It felt like a town that would be the right place to trial something that I've been working on, which is these small shops. Very lightweight, easy to set up, easy to scale, easy to grow, and then easy to kind of, I don't know what the word is, reward or incentivize the people that work here by offering them sweat equity, a chance to own a substantial portion of each individual business anyway, based off just them working in the business.
I love that. So here we are.
So we came here, and then, that little pandemic thing hit, and so us and a number of businesses waited, and so it was supposed to open in February initially of 2020, and then that got pushed to March, and then COVID hit. So we got this little outlet opening in February, I guess, of 2021, and looking to expand from here.
I think it's kind of like, so we found out about you through one of our nutrition coaches, Claire. She loves coffee too, like most of us here at the gym.
There were a handful of us watching an LSU game, and we started talking about our favorite new spots in the city, and it got to breakfast, and Claire was adamant that we all had to get a breakfast taco and some espresso at SV.
Yeah, and so here we are. So I tried to get it when everything was shut down, and it was impossible. It's like you were some type of cult underground coffee shop that was impossible to get breakfast tacos and coffee from.
Yeah, because we were doing a pop out of the office, we were in the quarter, and so just to kind of keep a run on things, you had to pre-order. So we just have folks email the night before, which is not necessarily ideal for breakfast, but it worked out for us. We make our own corn dough every morning. It's called masa. It's a special dough that you use for tortillas. And just as a way of knowing how much to make every day, just to pre-order, so I knew what I was making. But yeah, it ended up being challenging, which I like. So we kept the challenge alive, and maybe it's a little bit easier with the shop now that you can walk in. But yeah,
it's way easier now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I follow along on Instagram, and you have what, the tortilla diaries in the morning?
The tortilla diaries.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, try and show people that there are people. I mean, I know you all are the same actually, but there are people at 5 a.m. awake and working in this town. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're the same.
To be able to come in at 7 and get your breakfast and start
Someone
with
has
a
to be
small
at 5.
victory, someone
Yeah.
else had to do it
Yeah,
earlier.
that's the whole that's the whole theory behind the tortilla.
So why tacos with coffee?
I think that, well, I mean, there's a few influences. I think initially coming from Texas, where breakfast tacos, especially grab and go tacos, where they're made wrapped, ready to go, so you can grab and go. Was already in my mind. But small victories is about, as described, that quick sort of small victory in the morning. And I think that any other food where you'd be ordering and rushing, if you're ordering like, okay, now I have to stand here for 5-10 minutes while I make it, that already is a disincentive for someone to eat breakfast, right? I'm in a rush, I'm late for work, everyone's rushing in the morning. So I needed to do something that was quick, and I also wanted it to be something that was quick and filling and healthy and good. And then as a separate thing, I'm on what's called the FODMAP diet, which I was talking about before, which is a diet essentially trying to avoid certain gut triggers. Some people do it for fun. I don't know why anyone would do it for fun. Cut out, it's basically all the foods. For me, I do it unfortunately because of an IBS diagnosis, for whatever that's worth. So part of the things that I couldn't eat was gluten and bread and missing out. And for me, what I miss the most is dumplings, Cantonese style in particular dumplings, which is a very big breakfast food where I come from in Australia, especially on the weekends. So one of the things I was thinking about with...
Sounds like you guys had dinner for breakfast. Like we had breakfast for dinner.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, if you think about it, the way that food's consumed in the Cantonese parts of Canton, the Cantonese parts of China, so Hong Kong and through the various Cantonese parts. But I shouldn't say that. Even in Mandarin parts, they consume dumplings the same. It is very much a breakfast kind of food, or first meal of the day food,
right.
I'd say. And so for us, for me, what I was thinking about is, how can I replicate those flavors? And whilst at the same time thinking about these grab and go tacos, they're great in Texas if you're there an hour after they get dropped off. Most places don't make them, they get dropped off. But the tortillas start to fall apart, it's really a problem. So thinking about, what can I do with the dough to make it last and even almost get better throughout the day? And then separately, I had the dumplings in my mind. I thought, dumplings are like that, Steamed dumplings, they sit there in the steamer for hours and they actually get better. And then sometimes if you take them home and then you warm them up later, they're better too, right?
Yeah.
So for me, the dough that we make is very much a masa. It's a special, the dough that we make for tortillas, but it is made thinking about, okay, dumpling dough is a little bit wetter. So for me, that's why I'm making tacos. I'm making tacos because I'm really just making dumplings, things that I can make. We stick them in the warmer, they sit there and they steam inside the foil, and they get better like a dumpling. So they're almost more like a dumpling than a taco.
I love it.
I love just how well thought out all of that is.
It's very cerebral.
Yes, it's great.
But it should taste good, right? So I think it tastes good too, yeah.
So you told me something, and I kind of want to talk about it because I didn't know this was a thing, but I didn't know there was a difference between like Australian coffee and I guess in America or...
Yeah, I think every country has its own culture when it comes to coffee. And so yes, every country, I think, sometimes you have to be careful saying this if you're Australian because it can sound maybe like you're talking up your own shit too much. But Australia...
We like to talk our shit up all the time.
Yeah, I think... Are you fucking serious?
All right, we pause.
How long are we doing this now? How long are you going to be doing this for? How long are you going to be doing this for?
This is awesome.
Well, we're recording something.
Can you give us 10 minutes?
Can you give us 15 to 20 minutes? Thanks, man. Just because we're recording something.
Oh, good. That was awesome.
I want to get a screen grab of all of our faces when we heard that.
We should
voice.
totally leave that in.
Yeah, totally.
All right, so differences between Australian coffee and everywhere else.
Yeah.
And you're not just talking up your own shit.
Well, I probably am talking about my own shit, but Australia, in particular Melbourne, the city that I'm from, is a very influential coffee culture on coffee around the world, in particular coffee-based or espresso-based drinks. And it's informed by, coffee's a drink that's drunk everywhere. We're here in New Orleans, where it's a very important coffee city. Of the coffee that's used to come into the country. It was one of the sort of early trades through here. And so for Melbourne is a very dominated by numerous waves of immigrants. And in the late 40s, early 50s, there was, amongst several phases coming into that time, was the Italian immigrants. And the most popular thing at that time in Italy was espresso machines. The espresso machine had just really been popularized maybe in that sort of era. And so, when those folks came, they came literally on ships with, this machine. This company wasn't exactly around then, but with the machines that were around then, and set up small coffee shops. And the culture very much was that kind of influenced by the Italian approach to coffee, and particularly espresso approach to coffee, which was, coffee wasn't a drink that you had one time in the morning as a drug to wake you up and to get going, which is a legitimate thing, which is very much the approach here. But really it's a social drink, right? It's an excuse to, okay, I've worked for an hour, that's enough. Let me go and have a break and have a chat. At that time, there was probably frowned upon. Your boss didn't want you ducking down to the pub and smashing 12 beers and coming back to work. But it was okay to go and have a coffee with friends, and so, or with a work meeting. And so that's the culture that grew up from the 50s, 60s, and through into Australia. And it became this very singular sort of culture that grew steadily through the sort of 80s and 90s. And then there are a couple of really important immigrant waves after that that are not really acknowledged as much when folks talk about the Australian influence, but it really is. It's first the New Zealanders, God love them, that really came in mass in the 90s and brought a very specific focus on the ingredients going in. For us, it was more about technique. For them, it was ingredients. And then that was followed by, we have had, Australia is in Asia. It's confusing to people, but if you look at a map of the world, you can see where we are. So there's always been waves of Southeast Asian and East Asian immigrant, but particularly in the early 2000s, it became this very, almost like a luxury vanity stamp to say that your kids went to an Australian university.
Right.
So we are talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Japanese, Korean, Indonesian, Thai, Vietnamese, just everywhere over East and Southeast Asia, Chinese, I don't know if I mentioned as well, Japanese students coming through. And then those folks, as part of their visas, were allowed to work up to 20 hours a week. So if you think about, okay, I can work 20 hours a week, English, I'm still learning it, getting the grasp. They all went into working mainly a lot in cafes and restaurants, and that brought it even different precision and focus and changed the food that we did. And so that culture that you see now in Melbourne, which is very much dominated by, the socialness of it, the fact that folks will eat out breakfast and then eat out lunch every day, the fact that people are looking for breaks to have coffee, so the coffee can't be crazy strong because you can have 4 or 5 of them, mixed in with these kind of New Zealand influence and the East Asian, Southeast Asian influence has created this very specific culture around coffee, and then that's permeated out into the world. And so for us, we're trying to, have a coffee shop, but we're also trying to talk about multiculturalism. The cultures all mixing together, and this is a great way to do it. So folks talk a lot about the coffee culture. If you talk about people who work in specialty coffee, they talk about Melbourne being this this totem of but they never really talk about the multicultural elements of it. And so for me, I'm trying to talk about that as much as the actual drink itself.
I love it.
Yeah, there were a lot more layers to that than I was expecting.
Right? Yeah, so there's tacos with Chinese dumpling dipping sauce, and we have Lebanese flavors and Vietnamese flavors, and that. We're just trying to sort of talk about the various ways of immigration that came through.
So in particular, how do we talk about having it not be as strong. So when you talk about coffee, you more or less mean espresso drinks. People are socializing around espresso drinks because you can't really control the caffeine content of a typical brew, right?
I mean, you can in the sense that if you know what you're getting is consistent and you're putting in a consistent amount in, so you can. But the issue is you have less control in total, and I'm going to get yelled at here, but I don't care. You have less control in total over pour over and drip coffee. Despite what people say, despite when you go and you get a pour over and the person spends 48 minutes making it, which is very exciting for you to sit and watch them doing all these steps.
You're speaking to Bradley right now.
Those steps have an impact, but unfortunately those steps have less of an impact because the drink itself is way more diluted than, say, this thing. So as it's more diluted, those little steps are having having less of an impact over this thing that's more precise. The flip side is, when you're making it out of this, it's concentrate, every little thing has a bigger impact, way more margin for error.
Right.
So it's much easier to screw it up. Even if you know what you're doing, it's much easier to screw it up. So for me, one of the things that you can control is caffeine. So yes, I think it's easier to control the caffeine out of the machine.
I once went to a coffee shop that was convenient, and it was.
I like how you avoided the name.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say the name, but it was like they used a certain type of beans, and I was.
Do you mean convenient as there's a lot of them around?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. It was a standalone shop. Okay. Newer, and then depending on the day, would be depending on how the latte or the cappuccino or the espresso drink would taste, right? And
intentionally or unintentionally?
Unintentionally. I'm getting there, Hershey. And so I went to a different coffee shop who Sarah and I love. I'll just name it. It doesn't matter. The station over on Bienville?
Bienville.
Okay. In Mid-City. I don't know if you've been there.
I have not.
And they used the same beans as this other coffee shop. It was Orleans Coffee.
Okay.
And I'm like, I don't understand. Why does this coffee taste like this and that coffee tastes like that? But it's operator error, right?
Yeah. Well, to answer it, it could be error, but it could also be intentional. So I use congregation beans. They roast over an Algiers, and I think they make excellent coffee, both drip and espresso. But their coffee and my coffee, out of the espresso machine, it's completely different. And to give you an idea, even the machine's the same. So they fix machines as well. They actually fixed this machine for me. I had some issues with it, and they had it up on their bench, making coffee out of it just to test it to make sure it was right. So literally, we have used the same beans, the same machine, and it's different because we're trying to do something different. So yes, operator error, but also can be intentional. And that's the point. There are so many small little things that we do, some of them by accident, some of them on purpose, that make a real difference. I'll say for me, I don't understand this American fascination with acid in coffee, in the cup.
Right.
Because for me...
The bitterness.
Well, bitterness, sometimes the bitterness is acidity, sometimes it's other things. Yeah. But yes, sometimes it's that kind of when we describe acidity, especially in wine, we'll say it's the thing that grabs you here. So you drink it and it almost make that face, that's acidity. The reason why we roast beans, amongst many reasons, but the main reason is to get a lot of that acidity out. Okay. It's to help break it down, and sure, the water breaks it down, but one of the things you're doing when you're roasting it is you're starting to level off some of the acidity. And so the darker you roast it, the less acidity you're going to have. So, okay, in America, they like what's called, I guess...
Does that also control the caffeine content at all?
Love this question.
All right, well, I'll ask it because they say medium roast.
No, I love this. I love this question because I just had a bit of an argument with a very influential individual on Instagram about this.
Yes.
I hate the labeling around this. This is the problem. The problem is 100% what you said is what folks believe. Because I didn't realize it until here, and folks come in and say, we don't do drip. So folks come in and say, can I get a medium roast this? And I don't do drip. We can do an espresso. What do you normally have? Well, I normally have a medium roast. And I'll say, what does that mean? And they're like, just medium on the caffeine. And I get that because why would we think that? Because you've been taught that.
Well, I know that medium roast doesn't mean medium caffeine. It's just the level of roast. But I was always told that there was a higher caffeine. Now I feel like an idiot.
You don't feel like an idiot.
Let it out.
No, you don't feel an idiot.
It's a safe place.
You don't feel like an idiot. I'm going to explain to you why. Technically, it's true, but also it's a misnomer.
All right.
Technically, it's true, and this is the problem. This is the problem I have with this. The argument I have with this fellow and this other I have all the time. The answer when people say that is, well, technically that's true. Okay, but do you want to explain to them why that's technically true? The reason why is anything that you add heat to gets smaller.
Right.
Water evaporates. So if you're making something to wait, right, each bean has a certain amount of caffeine in it. You can roast it as much as you like. Nothing magical happens. The caffeine stays the same. Maybe if you roast it too far, it'll burn off, right? But it's going to stay the same. What the technically true thing is, okay, so if you're saying, okay, I'm going to make 20 grams of coffee.
Yeah.
So if a medium roast, it takes, let's pick a number. Let's say that's 8 beans of coffee because they're this big. Whereas a dark roast, it might be 9 grams or 8 beans or 8.5 beans, maybe even 9 beans because they got smaller.
Gotcha.
So the weight is less. So technically there's a whole other bean in there. So yes, at 20 grams of medium roast versus 20 grams of dark roast, you've probably got a little bit more of the coffee bean in there. So it's going to be, and so yes, you're right on that level. But that's not what people think. What people think is something happens in the roasting to that bean, and somehow the
controls the caffeine.
Caffeine amplifies. And my issue is, if we're going to explain to people, let's explain to people what's happening. Technically, yes, 20 grams of this has 20 grams of that. But that's not what people are thinking. What people are thinking is, look how dark this bean is.
Right.
Magically, the caffeine has increased. That doesn't happen. That's not a thing.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of
You're
sense.
technically right, but not in the way you think.
Got it.
And so for me, that, but where it does get it, where 100% what it does do is, it does make it taste a little stronger because there's roastier flavors, those are stronger. So I also think when people have sometimes a darker roast, they're like, oh, it's stronger, it must be caffeine. So not necessarily, there might be other things going on.
Gotcha.
And to take it to the end of where with us, when we use darker beans, sometimes we use beans from Australia that are roasted darker, we absolutely put less weight into the handle. So for example, right now with this one that I'm doing, that's I don't know if else is going to come up on the screen, but this is what in America you would call medium roast, and in Australia we would call this light roast. So I'm using, at the moment of this, with the weather the way it is and all the stuff, I'm using about 13.5 to 14 grams in the handle, and if I had, if they roasted this a little bit darker, I would actually be doing 13 to 12.5 grams. So for me, the roast impacts how much weight I'm putting in. So for me, it doesn't matter how light or dark it is, I'm usually getting a very similar amount of caffeine.
So your intentionality with your espresso is to reduce the caffeine intake.
Not strictly, but yes, that's part of it. But that's not the
also reduce the acidity.
Yeah, reduce acidity, reduce caffeine. Reduce caffeine, it's a relative term, right? So reduce caffeine to what? To what you're getting in America. Because in America, you have this thing of, I need this thing, it's a drug, and let me get going. As I like to say, and you may or may not edit this out, but listen, God gave us Adderall. So if you need something in the morning, take that. Crystal meth, if that's your thing, fine. But like, the reality is that, yeah, it does wake you up a little, but it's a social drink. In Italy, they have like, I'm saying I'm putting 13.5 in your shot, right? In Italy, you're probably going to get somewhere between 8 and 10. Maybe it's a little bit more modern now, trying to America thing, 11 grams. In Australia, I don't really know. It mixes. We split shots in Australia, which won't get into technical too much. It's actually really easy to understand. But we'll put sometimes 18 to 20 in, and then get 2 shots out of it to make a latte for you and a latte for you. So you're getting maybe 10 or 11 grams of coffee effectively. Yeah? Whereas in America, what does it look like?
Double shot for everything.
Yeah. And so, that's fine. I mean, double shot also relates to as much of the water as the coffee, but like, they might put like 18 or 20 grams in the handle and then give you that. That's too much. What do you need that for?
Right.
One thing I don't understand though is you're like, so you have less espresso in your drink.
Yes.
Okay. However, it doesn't taste weak or anything.
Yeah.
It tastes perfect.
Right, so that's the point, right? So here's what's interesting. So this is what we call, very, very quick technique. This is a handle, and then this is a basket. Basket is coffee. So the thing with that is, there's a few things, but essentially, I once heard someone say that making coffee is a very violent process. I like that. That's really what it is. There's a lot of pressure built up in here, high pressure, and then it pushes through ground coffee. That's it. And so the more coffee you put in here, the more space there is between the bottom of the basket and the water that's coming in, the more the water has to go through.
Gotcha.
Now, on some level, we like that because the more build-up there is, that pressure is building up inside here and pushing through. But there's a law of diminishing returns. At some point, there's too much work going on for the water that's coming through, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. So I think by me putting a little bit less coffee in here, so this is a split shot, and you guys have the 2-step, which I do split. We put a little bit more than 13.5 in that, but regularly I'll just put 13.5, it'll come out, it catches it in one cup. I think, so for me, I'm putting less in, 13.5 versus 22. The water that's coming through finds it a little bit easier to cut through, and so because of that, it's pulling out more.
I got you.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So even though, yes, we want to do enough work so the pressure builds up, it's still going to get it pretty fine in here, it does that, and then that water that comes through, it's doing a little bit more work. Because here's the thing, those 22 gram shots that you're getting out of the cafes, they're giving you the exact same water as me. They might even be giving you less water as well. So that water had so much work to do in such little time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what did it pull? It pulled out the caffeine because that comes out first right away. But the secondary characteristics and the third part of the shot where we think the sugars break down the most, you're not getting much of any of that because that water had too much work to do. So by me having less, or by us having less coffee in here, that water was able to do more work and pull out things like flavor. And what I say is...
So that's what it has to do with your intentionality of what you're trying to accomplish.
Correct.
With the espresso.
Which is also, again, someone can make a mistake and do that too. Oh shit, the boss told me to put 22 grams, but I put, 13. Wow, it tastes better. Yeah.
All right. So two-step. Sarah and I both had a two-step here.
Yeah.
Can you explain what a two-step is?
Yeah, so a two-step is ours. It's our own sort of drink. So like I said, we will put normally 13.5 for a two-step. At the moment, with this being, and it changes, it is 16, somewhere between 16 and 16.5 grams, and then we split it. So, for those not doing the math at home, it's about 8.5, somewhere between 8 and 8.25 grams worth of, coffee that you're not getting the beans, obviously, but the water that passed through. And so it splits into, it splits into, this is, say 6 ounces, 5.8, 6 ounces. And this is just, we call these for a short black. So in Australia, we call an espresso a short black. It's an interchangeable term. And I think it's a term that should be used here more because, once upon a time, you had a single espresso and then double espresso, and now everyone just puts, like if you ever go to a cafe, they go, all our shots are doubles. Okay, if all your shots are doubles, that shot's a single. Like, a double is a relative statement. What you're saying is, I put twice the amount of the single. If you only have that thing is the single. So that's why I say to people, are you pulling doubles? I'm like, I don't know what that means. We just pulled this. That's what it means. But when I'm making a half step, when two-step, you're getting half, right?
Right.
So technically, you're getting half a double. So you're getting a single. You're getting a single espresso. And then it goes into here, and that's called a social latte. Both these drinks are available on their own, or you can do them together. And so what we like to say is, what's a social latte? A social latte is a lighter milk-based drink, because you're only getting half the shot, and the other half a shot's here, a lighter, espresso, short black, single espresso. And I think it's a really fun way. It comes, honestly, about necessity's mother all invention. Like, I was making them, and I was usually just drinking things. Like, people order the social latte. The social latte, for people to know, is it is what it sounds like, which is it's the lighter caffeine, so maybe it's the 3 o'clock in the afternoon coffee. Right. It's the coffee, I'm coming here because I don't want to have a wine, but I want to meet a friend or have a business meeting or whatever it is. So it's a social drink. So I had this leftover shot and I've been drinking it, and I'm like, I should sell them together because they actually make sense. And so it just ended up becoming a thing. So we just do, it's called a two-step, and there's no rule to it. When I have it in the morning, I usually have one in the morning too. I usually have it like, this is the steak, and this is the potatoes on the side, and so you kind of like, But some folks like to just drink the shot quickly and then have that, whatever it is. Fun drink. Fun way to look at it came out of the exact same handle, it came out of the exact same place, but simply adding a little bit of milk, what it does to this drink.
I love it.
Yeah.
What is your biggest coffee hot take?
What is my biggest
That
coffee
you think
hot take?
people are going to yell at you or scream at you for, or curse at you? What is your biggest coffee hot take?
Oh, I mean, everything that I've said here is going to piss off a lot of people. There's something called the Specialty Coffee Association, SCA, which is a very big and powerful organisation, and they have an expo every 2 years or year, and it's going to be in New Orleans in a couple of months. And so I don't like.
Oh, really?
Yep. So I don't know who would see this necessarily from there, but pretty much every person that goes there has found something to get pissed off at what I just said, which is fine. If you want to, make an omelette, you got to break a few eggs. But I don't know. I think the thing that upsets
If you want to be world class, expect to be unrelatable.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, I think we're yeah. I mean, I think that we're just assholes. I think all these nice things to say. I think me, not you.
No, I'm an asshole.
Oh,
I'm
that's
100%
good.
Sarah, am I an asshole?
Yeah.
Yeah, then you know. So that's what it is. Yeah, we're unrelatable assholes. I don't know what would piss people off in particular. I think.
What is something that people are doing that you're like, no, that's wrong, that we haven't discussed already? Or like,
For me,
it's like your pour-over thing, your Chemex hot take.
Oh, well, no. I mean, to me, it's just acidity. It's the same thing. I think this, obsession with chasing acidity is ridiculous. And I think also, you can be pretentious and knowledgeable and an expert and rude, which is all the things that we want to be, honestly, without actually being slow. So the thing that I don't really get is I think that we need to be faster, and everything for us is around being really, really fast without sacrificing quality. So we have a very short menu for that reason. If it got bigger, it would slow us down. We don't do pour over because I don't know the fan of it, but it takes forever. There's no way to do it fast, right? And be good.
And it's not that much better than my drip.
Yeah, and that's it. And
that's what I say, because I drink drip like Monday through Saturday, and I'll do like a Chemex in the afternoon on a weekend. It's not that much better.
It's not. It really isn't.
Not that much.
You enjoy the process.
Right, I enjoy the process.
That's what it is. And so if you enjoy the process of watching some person standing there doing this process, then that's fine for you. But like for me, we can be faster and still be kind of a lot of specialty coffee shops want to be pretentious. I think that's okay. Like we're pretentious a bit. That's fine. I think you can be pretentious and fast. So that's my hot take that'll piss people off. I think people need to be faster. Well, that's what makes it fun. If you're faster, people are like, this is more fun. It didn't have a quick game's
I can stay and hang out for a few minutes.
Yeah, that's it. You can hear me rant about politics or vaccines.
I love that. If you want to hear about politics and vaccines, just come to SV Espresso.
Just be very clear up front that we're Australian, so we're very pro-science around here. So if you're not pro-science, you need to stay away. No, you should come and then just be prepared to be
we're a health and fitness industry, so we're also pro-science. Sarah, anything else for Hershey?
No, something I've been thinking about a lot lately. I read an article and they talked about how it was talking specifically with people that are emotional eaters and trying to reframe it as like, what do you do when you really love something? Like you nurture it, you take care of it, and we don't often do that with food. And realizing, I don't know, kind of on our way over here, I was thinking like, man, why did I start drinking coffee? And it was the social aspect, it was the memories, it was like I associate it really strongly with important people in my life. And at some point in my adult life, I've kind of started bastardizing it and using it more like a drug. But if I really love something, that's not how I should treat it. And that's just kind of been running in my head while we've been talking.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, like I don't like the drug element of it. The stimulant is important. I don't want to.
Oh no.
Right?
I drink half a pot in the morning.
Yeah, like that's fine. I just think it can be both.
Right.
Like, I mean, let's talk about an actual drug. I'm not a big weed smoker because I just can't handle it. But like, weed's legal in many parts of the country, and
I'm a big fan of marijuana.
Yeah. I have nothing against it. I'm a lightweight. But like, when you live in places where it's legal, like we lived in LA for a while and stuff around that, it was always a social thing. You always got together with friends, you got high. But as it became like, this business and becomes even more of a social thing, that's a good example. If it's a drug, you're doing it to get high, to relax, whatever it may be, but also it's social. I think coffee should be the same.
Like drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
Or wine.
Yeah. This thing that I see of where we see, Americans, we're in America, with these giant fucking thermoses walking around in the morning struggling to get out of the car. Like, a lot of people park here to go downtown. I'm like, it's the craziest thing I've seen in my life. Like, what are you doing?
Hershey, I'm laughing because this is my process. When I coach 5:30 a.m. class, like I make half a pot.
Yeah.
Because I'm getting up at 4:25. All right. Yeah. So I have the half a pot programmed. All right. I grind my beans the night before, put them in there. Half a pot. Boom. Pour that into a giant thermos, and I walk it, and I drink the thing of the next 2 hours.
He puts it in a little cup.
Yeah, I put it in a cup not much bigger than this, and I just sip it.
But you walk around with the cup, you'll just have that sitting there. Like
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the person that makes this giant thing and is walking around sipping from this thing of like, it's like you're backwashing spit.
It's like going to Starbucks and ordering a venti.
What's fun about that?
What do you need a venti?
You're just making it and keeping it in your jug. I'm not talking about that. That's fine. That's great. And they should do that. Just go to the office, make a pot, and then sit there. And if someone finishes it, yell at them and say, "You're
also
finished it."
Who wants to drink coffee out of a thermos? It's metal. Do you like drinking coffee out of metal? I don't.
I mean, I don't. But
right.
like, I don't really have much experience. I don't have much experience with it. Yeah, glass or like ceramic. Yeah. But I don't know if I've really done that thermos thing. But yeah. I mean, it's environmentally friendly. I do think that part's good. But yeah.
I had a ceramic thermos. It broke.
Hence,
they don't make a lot of.
They don't make a lot of.
This is why we don't have.
If you drop them, they last. Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else you want to say, Hershey?
No, not really. Oh, I actually might have a hot take that'll piss off not the industry, it'll piss off customers.
All right. What is that?
I blame Starbucks for this, but like I don't hate on Starbucks. I think what they do is a magic trick, honestly, that they're consistent at all these shops with all these different staff and these places. I think that's a magic trick. The thing that I'm pissed off about them is that they've educated the customer that just tell us the ingredients of the drink and we'll make it. And I didn't really know that about Starbucks, but you can just like go, can I get this with 2 squeezes of that and this and that? That's the thing. And then
no, bro, here's the menu.
yeah, like just they make it like that's
right.
And so like to me, like that's the thing. If you're going to Starbucks, it's fine. If you're going to a coffee shop, like you should just let them make a drink. And if you say, "Oh, this wasn't a good drink, I'm not coming back here," that's correct. That's the thing to do. Or I like it, I want to come back. That's also good. But this thing of like
customized.
yeah, no, and there's an element of it's different to customize because customize is like, oh, can I get it with oat or this and that? That's fine. It's the can I get a double shot with this? And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're coming in here and telling me the ingredients of your drink and the recipe. Just make it at home. Leave me alone.
Right.
So yeah, that's my hot take. There you go for customers to yell at.
What is like? Have you ever told a customer that?
Yeah, all the time.
I love it.
All
That's awesome.
the time.
All right. Where can they find you on social media?
We're at so Small Victories is at SV Espresso on the
What's our
Instagram.
address here?
And the address here is 1164 Camp Street. You just look up Small Victories or SV Espresso on the Google, and we will come up and you'll find us from there. And then hopefully, I'm not sure when this airs, but hopefully we get a second shop, somewhere that way. I don't know if that helps anyone because no one knows where I'm pointing.
We're right off the interstate, uptown, on
right.
the other side of the World War II Museum, basically.
Yeah.
But I highly recommend it. I have come here with my kids. We have gotten coffee drinks, drank them all out on the porch, and then come back in and ordered more.
That's the way to do it. That's how we do it.
All right, y'all. Appreciate it. Peace.